Talks Resilience, where we share stories of insight and inspiration in life, love, and business with resilient women from around the world. Speaking with authors, entrepreneurs, founders, and coaches to learn their strategies for a more resilient life so we can all build the life we love. I'm your host, Kim Hayden. All righty. Our next guest on Kim Talks Resilience is living the dream. I'm pretty excited to bring her on because she's touching on something that has actually personally affected me in raising three amazing human beings. But also the fact that she seems to have a pretty cool life. So we're going to dive in a little bit and find out, what really her story of resilience is and what's making her tick. So our next guest is speaker, author, and teacher, Abigail. Let's see. Hold on one second. We're going to edit that front intro. I want to grab Abigail's last name. I don't have her last name in here. Hold on one second. Abigail, where is your last name? And hold on. Gimpel. Here we go. So I'm going to actually edit that. So my editor, cut that. Start it here. Abigail. I can't believe we didn't have your last name in there. I'm so sorry, Abigail. Let's see here. All right. Welcome back to Kim Talks Resilience. I'm super excited about today's guest because today's guest is practicing in a space that has been a space I've had to lean on with my three children and myself. But also super excited to learn a little bit more about a true globetrotter, somebody, a child of the universe, more or less, in the sense that, open to not just the quid pro quo that you're raised with, but getting out there, researching how you can be of service and realizing that globally we have more in common than we actually think we do. So today's guest is our speaker, author, and teacher, Abigail Gimpel. She has earned her BA and graduate degree from Touro College. She is a graduate for education, special education. Ooh, we're just going to go right back to that. One more time. Hang with me, Abigail. All right. Welcome back to Kim Talks Resilience. First time stopping by, we have got a great show for you. And if you're returning, thank you so much for your time. It is awesome when you guys all stop by. So today's guest is a gal who actually is doing a service that has impacted myself with raising three amazing human beings and, has a really cool kind of journey. And I'm dying to dig more into it. Today's guest is a speaker, an author, and a teacher. Abigail Gimpel has earned her BA and graduate degree at Touro College and Graduate School for Special Education. Her advanced degrees is in teaching children with dyslexia and ADHD. While teaching third grade in an inclusion classroom, she developed a successful intervention program for her students struggling with ADHD symptoms. Having lived and worked in New York, Israel, and Moscow, she has observed that kids with ADHD have similar symptoms universally. Abigail has built a teacher's training program while teaching herself at Herzog College. She is an author of the Hyper Healing, the Empowered Parent's Complete Guide to Raising Healthy Children with ADHD Symptoms. And by the way, it's a #1 bestseller on Amazon. And the Hyper Healing, Show Me the Science. So let's bring Abigail in here. Hello, Abigail.
Hey, Kim, loved your introduction. Wow, thank you so much.
Oh, you have done so much and been so many places. I'm a little jealous. I want to get across the pond. I went from Kansas to Canada, and that's a drivable distance. But, you really just decided that you wanted a different trajectory, and I think that's awesome. A lot of people get displaced because of world issues due to war or famine or anything along those lines, but you chose to go on a journey to learn. I think that's amazing. Before we dive into what you do, I want to know, who is Abigail?
Well, first of all, I am a mom of 6 awesome kids, with most of them having ADHD symptoms. I'm also a special educator. I love being in the classroom. My favorite ages are elementary school. I'm a wife, and I am a really, really hardworking woman because my passion and my goal is to help every child, no matter how much money they have or a lack of money, be able to get the help they need to be understood and to get the program that works best for them to be able to learn to their utmost potential. And this definitely came from a passion from very, very young for me. Because as a little kid in first and second grade, I remember myself being completely spaced out, completely not part of the program. I had loads of friends. I was very social, but when it came to the classroom, I couldn't keep organized. I couldn't keep on task. And I probably would have been diagnosed with ADHD if it were today, when about 50% of every classroom gets diagnosed with ADHD. But luckily for me, I'm already in my 40s, so I missed the wave. And but basically for me, I did not have ADHD, and the proof really is that I just sat down and wrote 2 books, and was able to do it without having to have any brain altering medications. And I was able to do that because the reason why there was that challenge in the first and second grade, and probably straight up through elementary school, was because I was emotionally overstressed from home environment issues, and therefore I was not aware and capable of sticking with what was going on in school. And when I look at students, I say every single kid here has a story. Every single kid has a reason why they're not doing well. And my passion and my goal is to ask what's going on for this child, why they're not struggling, why they are struggling, instead of saying, what diagnosis does this child have? And that's the passion that really pushes me forward every single day.
Oh, there I am. Pop in and out. Been one of those days. One of those days. Huge amounts of notes here already. I myself, my mother would tell you that I'm definitely ADHD. When I do mind maps, it's like a bowl of spaghetti, and so it takes a lot of work to create that linear and sequential. I've just spent the last 2.5 years working on a SaaS product for podcasters, and that was 60 hours. That's forcing myself to, as soon as I started veering off, bringing it back in, being very hyper conscious, putting all of those maps around me. And I don't think it's something that I could have tackled in my 30s. And my report card, did you ever have a report card that said, Kimberly Joe, Avigail, if you only just applied yourself?
Oh my God. Every
Yes.
report card. So much potential, all the potential.
I hated that. I hated that.
That word.
Yeah, I think anybody out there, if you had a report card, if you just applied yourself, if you have a report card like that, I think we're going to start a support group for people over 40 with report card anxiety.
I'd like to invite everyone to do a mass report card burning.
I'm with you 110%. So let's dive in this and pull this out. So some questions I was writing down is, do we all have some form of ADHD? Is this environmental? Is this a nature versus nurture? Is it is it an excuse or an explanation of behavior? And can somebody with ADHD get through fairly unscathed in their youth and be able to have a healthy life? So let's go back. I want to go back to the nature versus nurture.
All right. Well, you just asked that question like a person with ADHD, and I'm with you. I remember all of it. All right, here we go. The only thing it most definitely is not is an excuse. So let's throw that one in the garbage. Nature nurture. The issue is that ADHD symptoms, and I'm careful to call it that way because ADHD it's a construct. It's basically a list of symptoms. And that construct can be applied to many different people for different reasons. And the way I see ADHD, and I've been working with ADHD for 25 years now, is that it's a clash between a healthy person and their environment. Now, there are some genetic aspects to it. Let's say, for example, your personality. So, your personality, you have an instant gratification personality. That means you're the person who's living in the here and now, the fun, exciting, interesting, novel. You want that all the time. So, you have a great idea and you're inspired, and you get all the people around you to do it with you, and then you peter out because the follow through is torture. So that is a personality type. That's an adaptive, healthy personality. Take that adorable, wonderful personality that every one of my children and my husband have, stick it in a classroom. There's a clash because you need to be able to fight through the little nitty-gritty tedious tasks in order to succeed in school, and it can't all be interesting, and you also have to develop healthy habits to get through. So therefore, that's the clash. And it's a healthy child, and the child's not making it because they're not good at creating habits because they don't like the repetitive behaviors. Waking up in the morning is a nightmare. They're the first ones to wake up in the morning to go to Six Flags. But when it comes to anything else, do you have Six Flags in Canada?
No, we don't. It's pretty cold
Okay.
here. I don't know
I
if I'd want to see
listen,
a roller
I lived
coaster.
in Moscow, so I know cold.
Oh, yeah.
And I'll just tell you, in Moscow, all year round, they had these outdoor amusement parks open where you could stick your little ones on a ride and they sit there with blue lips, gritting their teeth, shivering, and going around on a little ride, making believe they were having fun. I don't know what's up with those guys. Back to our topic. We have great pictures of our kids on these amusement park rides with like full ski gear, not happy.
Not
Uh,
happy. No,
not
nobody's
happy.
happy in that cold.
Nobody's happy. It's
Well,
unbelievable.
it's
So
it.
back to yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I do have a question about the instant gratification. Human brains, human beings tend to be wired for that immediate gratification. So we know that the hard things are hard up front with a long-term return. So building a business, eating healthy, exercising, anything that gives you that long-term gain has a short-term pain. But
Sure.
the human beings, our brains, aren't they actually wired to want that short-term gain, that short-term return, and we try and push the can down the road for the long-term pain?
So that's not everybody.
No?
No, it's not. There are people that look forward to that big project to get everyone on board who are able to just say, enjoy the small steps it takes to get to the end goal. And like the success of I'm a little bit closer, I'm a little bit closer, or they're willing to sit in the classroom and focus because they know that if they get good notes, then they'll be able to study for the test and succeed. Now that's 2 months down the road, but they're still able to do that. The future award, the delayed gratification, works for them. It doesn't work for an instant gratification kid, which is why that kid is suffering in the classroom. But that's not the only nature nurture thing we're dealing with, because that's a personality thing. But you have other physiological issues, which are not genetic, but it's usually environmentally triggered, like health issues, gut microbiome issues, all sorts of things. The clash between the brain and the gut, because the gut is not healthy. So therefore, you have a kid sitting in a classroom uncomfortable. They can't focus because they're not producing with their gut microbiome enough neurotransmitters for their brain to focus properly. So that's another issue. Trauma, which I referred to earlier for myself, with stress, anxiety, trauma, things not going well in the environment, some kind of abuse or neglect that's going on, the kid is going to exhibit ADHD symptoms. And that's what I
Yep.
was doing as a little child. So, and that child again is unavailable to learn.
Well, and that's interesting that you bring that up because um, growing up, it was always, is Kim telling the truth? Is Kim telling the truth? Well, I was in a high trauma situation, and and if I was a child today, they would definitely diagnose me as ADHD. I mean, my doctor 5, 6 years ago, I just said, I can't focus. I can't get my head on straight. And I know I need to make some shifts. And he's like, well, here, try this. And then, so I tried a medication. All of a sudden I had no original thoughts going on. I had nothing happening. So it came off, and I just said, I've got to figure out a way to work through this. But it is interesting when you take that trauma, that continuous trauma, it has actually a lot of the same, that detach that separate from reality. So they make up their own stories. They,
Oh,
you
yeah.
know, and it's very interesting how the two are very similar, right? Um, so as a teacher, right, and as a mother, you see this going on. How do you not? I'm hoping and praying that younger people are better or more patient parents than my generation or the generation before me.
Here's hoping. Yeah.
So I'm going to actually tackle this two ways, because I'm going to jump on the biggest one that is a really, really, I think it's the piece that we don't talk about. It's the elephant in the room. How do parents move past feeling the blame or shame or anger that their child isn't like the one on TV, that their child isn't what the books told them that they would get? So
Oh,
let's tackle that one first.
that's a
Let's
big
tackle
one.
the parents.
And it's interesting because you asked a question before, which I didn't address because we got into the nature and nurture. You asked about, can you survive this? Can you become a healthy and productive human being as an adult? Well, the answer, of course, is yes, because look at you. The reason I'm mentioning that is because it comes back to this question you just asked. And the issue here is that when a parent does not get over their shame and their anger and their frustration about the fact that they didn't get the TV child, and I actually recently had to tell a client that their child, when the 6-year-old, when they sit at dinner, he's not going to sit there like he's in a sitcom and say clever little things. He's going to eat his food in 3 seconds, and then he's going to want to go play with his trucks. So, and that's a normal child. They don't want to sit around with the old folks and discuss deep topics and funny things over dinner. So therefore, I kind of bring parents down to reality of like what it really looks like to raise kids. But if the parents do not get over that shame, then the child's not going to make it. And that's a big issue. And the clash between the environment and a healthy child is sitting right here, because you are your child's environment and you got the exact child that was right for you. And there is no perfect child, and there is no picture that you were supposed to have. And parenting is a process. Your child's raising you as much as you're raising your child, and you guys are walking together on a journey. So when the parents are able to unpack the suitcase that they carry on their shoulders of their shame, of them not being good enough, of all of the voices that they have in their head, when they could unpack that and say, that's not even reality. Those things are not true about me. But what is true is that I'm the luckiest person in the world because I have this incredible child to raise. And I've been entrusted with this pure soul. And we are supposed to be taking a journey. And I'm not supposed to snap my hand and the kid just listens. And then the kid does Brady Bunch. And then kid goes to bed. And they just don't do that. Our children's job is to make it hard for us to discipline them. Our job is to raise good children. And therefore, if we can get past our voices, then we could absolutely help these children develop healthy habits, healthy emotional responses. And which is why I spend the first 3 chapters of my book directed only at parents. I don't mention the children until chapter 4, because you want to do this right. And it starts right here.
So understanding that our children we as human beings go out of this world with the toe tag. We don't come in with the toe tag. So there's no instructions. We're all flying blind. But understanding that, when are the times, what are the cues that we should be looking for, that we need to start asking questions? We need to start, uh, talking to, the teachers, or starting to maybe push for maybe some medical, analysis on what's going on with our children. When is that? When do we start doing that?
I've been incredibly amazed and impressed by parents' gut feeling. When we see that our child is not flourishing, our child's not happy, something's off, they're not making friends properly, they should be reading by now, they should be sitting in the classroom because they're already in second grade, they shouldn't be wanting to play around all the time, they're tantruming in the afternoons, things like that. We usually know when's the right time to turn to get some help. I generally don't send people for the medical thing as a first intervention, only because the ADHD diagnostic process is really lacking. It's basically a checklist. And if you get that checklist, they're not going to really check out, is there anything going on in the environment? Is there any physiological problem? How much does your child on screen time? Does the child sleep at night properly? They're not usually looking at the full picture, which is why I would say more turn to your own curiosity. What's off for my child? If my child's spending 7 hours on his or her phone every day, there's an addiction. Got to address it. If my child has a runny nose and autoimmunity or asthma or allergies, things like that, I've got to look at that. The real reason to turn to medical help is to be medicated, and ADHD is not a shortage of methylphenidate in the brain. It's something going on in the child's real life. Can medication be helpful? It can be. It does not solve the problem. It certainly quiets the child down, and there's value in a quieter child. But long run, if we don't resolve these root issues, we're not going to help the child flourish. If you never get rid of the gut dysbiosis, or you don't help the child create healthy habits, then they're just going to be constantly, we're going to be gluing them together their entire life. Every year, glue them together, get a lot of tutors, get a lot of medication, get a lot of therapy. But a child doesn't need therapy, medication, and constant tutoring. A child needs us to hear them, see them, and understand what's going on for them. So definitely invite people to help you out. But your first step should not be running for medication, which was my first step. My first step was running for medication. But I've taken a journey, and I
Yeah.
see the way now.
And every child responds differently. I have 3 children. My oldest, and you have to keep asking questions. Keep
Yes.
asking questions. I didn't understand the shame and blame, and so I avoided a lot of things with my oldest child, that had I started really drilling in and asking some very serious questions, things that we learned when he was 15, after all those behaviors, so much is set in stone, and all of the emotional baggage he carries because of that, those things could have been discovered when he was 8, right?
Right. Right.
And yet I discovered things at the age of 8 with my middle child, that by actively swimming 5 a.m. in the morning, like keeping these kids busy,
Yeah.
that literally changed the way his brain works and how he engages. So I want to talk a little bit about language, because language is so incredibly important when we talk to these little human beings that will grow up and run our world.
Yes.
So what I'd really like to talk about is, and if you can model for us, if a parent is facing this and they can't put their thumb on it and they're frustrated, but they've got to go and have a conversation with the individual that is exhibiting the behavior, be it a 4-year-old child, a 6-year-old child, 7-year-old child. How should they start that conversation? What are some languages that they should put into that conversation so they can guide it they can guide it to get the answers they need, but not risk imprinting their beliefs on that child? Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
You
And
can you tell that I've walked your walk?
yeah, this is amazing. We totally are syncing up here.
So
That's really
if you
yes,
can model that language so we could
sure.
take away even just one key thing a parent can take from this and say, oh my God, or a grandparent can send this video to their child who's struggling. Are you cool with that?
Absolutely. So I
All
want,
right.
before I start to model, I just want to recommend the work of Ross Green, The Explosive Child. His collaborative problem solving is excellent. And that's something that I work with a lot. And I quoted him in my book. I actually dedicated a full chapter to it, and I've been in touch with him. He's a real gentleman in real life as well. And then I sent him a copy of the book because I'm so grateful for what he's done for us. So the first step is really empathy. And empathy is such an important step because what we do is we like to solve our kids' problems. We like to say, well, you're not getting along with Johnny. So what you should be saying is you should be inviting him and you all that. And that's a big mistake because our children, in order to be able to learn new skills, they have to process it on their own. And also, they run away from conversations with us because we are judgmental. We are, we're upset with them. We're frustrated. Why can't they get this right? So, therefore, we start with empathy. And it would start with Joey, you seem to be really struggling with getting out of bed in the morning. What do you think is going on? And then he'll go, I'm not struggling with getting out of bed. The day is stupid. I don't want to get out of bed for this kind of day. Or you wake me up too early and I get out of bed as well as I can. A lot of distractions, a lot of not wanting to really address the issue because Johnny doesn't want to be blamed. He doesn't want another speech from us. So at that point, he's put up a lot of walls for us. So what we would do is say, wow, so the day is really difficult for you. We're mirroring. The day is very difficult for you. I hear that. It's not a lot of things you're looking forward to in the day. And you do wake up quite early. I agree with you on that one. And what else is going on for you? What is challenging about getting out of bed? What we're doing is we're kind of jumping over or walking around the walls that he's putting up for us because he's uncomfortable. So once we walk around that, and then we could say, what else is going on for you? We start to get to something a little bit more genuine where he could share with us that he's really tired or he has a hard time falling asleep or the morning feels really confusing for him because he doesn't know where his clothing are or he doesn't have an appetite, whatever it is that's going on for him, or that he's on his screen very late at night. So we're hearing all of that. We're mirroring it. We're repeating it to him. We're receiving it. At no point are we correcting him, or let's say the topic is getting along with a sibling, and we're seeing that he starts up with the sibling all the time instead of the opposite way around. And then he'll say, but Frank is always starting up with me. And that's just not true. It doesn't matter in this conversation at the beginning because we want to tell him that we're hearing him. So we're going to repeat what he says, not agree with it, but repeat it so that we can get to the next stage. Another two tricks that we can use is identifying with our own story. Like, God, when I was your age, I had such a hard time getting out of bed. My God, I couldn't sleep, fall asleep at night. I tossed and turned. Real stories. We always have stories. We've had a full life experience as parents. So there's something that we could pull up and really understand. And we're not saying that we have the exact same experience as you. We're saying I could identify your experience is unique. It's different than mine, but at least we're on the same page. This is very helpful when a child feels guilty about what they're doing or they feel like it's shameful. Let's say they feel jealous of a younger sibling. So they don't want to admit that because jealousy is not a good thing to admit. So you would bring up a story. Well, I remember when I was in the 8th grade and the kid next to me, she always had these great snacks and her mother made her these amazing lunches. And I'm actually telling a real story right now. And I would just be super jealous of her. And all I wanted was her sandwich. Like if only her mother would send in 2 sandwiches the next day, from one for me, one for her. So I share that and it lightens up the mood. Oh, also mom could be jealous. Then I can talk about it. Another thing we could do is kind of give a list of emotions that the child might be feeling, because our goal here is to really identify what emotion our child is going through so that he or she can handle it. If it's jealousy, then they could put that in a box and say, okay, what does one do with jealousy? How do I handle jealousy? Why do I feel jealous? And then we can go on to the next stage, which is helping them solve the problem. If it's getting out of bed, then okay, so is it laziness, or is it that I just can't stop myself from being on my device at night, and therefore it's an issue of self-control, or there's nothing I look forward to during the day. I have no anticipation. Okay, so it's boredom. Let's deal with that. Now we get to stage 2 where I tell them what my problem is. So what's my problem? My problem is you're missing the bus every day, and therefore you're getting into a lot of trouble in school, or it's making it difficult for us to get out to our work during the day, or the jealousy. The problem is not that you're jealous. That's okay. We're all jealous. It's how you're dealing with it, because your brother lands up getting hit, or beaten or yelled at. And that part is not okay for us. We can't allow that in our home. So we're hearing our side and we're hearing our child's side. And then finally, we could kind of link arms and come to a solution. What could we do together that helps you get out of bed better? And that helps us so that we have an environment in the morning which is calm, where we're not yelling. And we could create a behavior chart for that. Or we can talk about putting barriers around the screen time and helping the child go to sleep better. Maybe we can talk about being together in the evening and spending more quality time together. But either way, we're addressing both of our needs, and we're checking in with each other to make sure that that's happened. If the child's jealous, we can talk about. I actually did this with one of my children, and she was very jealous when I did homework. There's 6 of them, so she was very jealous when I did homework with a sibling, and she'd come over and start bothering the sibling or tickling me or making noise, whatever it was. She did all sorts of things. She's a powerful kid. And finally, I sat down and talked to her, and I said, "There's something going on." We got to the jealousy part, and then we were able to come up with a plan where she would come over to me and say, "Mom, I really want attention now." And she said it proudly and without being embarrassed. And then I'd look at her and just give her a huge compliment that she was able to be so clear instead of doing something that was harmful to herself and to everyone in her environment. And then I would say, "Okay, great. Thanks for asking. In 20 minutes, I'll be done here. And then I'll be able to be with you. And we can make dinner together." So I was able to give her that solution only when she was able to take responsibility for her emotion and be able to control that emotion and communicate in a way that is respectful to herself and to everyone else. So that's a walkthrough. There's so much more to say about it.
Well, I find it I find it all very fascinating how we tend to, or we, and I'm guilty of this. Um, Parents get busy. We can get overwhelmed. We can get, and then we tend to talk at our children, not discuss with our children. And I learned this personally in working so diligently with my middle child, who's an amazing, amazing young man. Every person that meets him goes, like, is there anything this kid cannot do? But this is a kid that when he was 8 years old, that his teachers had given up on him.
Oh, it's
And
terrible.
he had been removed from a classroom, and he had been identified as the problem child. And so we all went, because I'm like going, I'm not losing a kid.
Oh no.
I mean, Mama Bear is not. I'm not. These are all the kids that were gifted to me. And by the way, if you're a parent out there, they are gifts.
Oh yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah. And so I went into counseling myself. I needed to learn how to understand how this kid is processing what I'm saying. When parents get to that point, what are some um, internal dialogues that parent can do for themselves, either to pat themselves on the back or to give themselves grace? Because I think that's really important.
And I agree with you 100%. And I had a very similar story where my third child, who actually I had the last night of my semester in the college I teach in last night, and I invited her to come and speak to my class because she was the one that the system tried to squeeze out. And I took her for an evaluation, and this psychologist at the end of the evaluation said, "You better get this kid medicated or she's going to end up in jail." And I'm like, "No, my kid's not going to jail. I don't know what's going to be with yours, but mine's going to shine." And
Exactly.
yeah. And she came into my classroom. She's 20 years old, and she spoke to my college students who are all teachers. And she brought the house down. She is so articulate and intelligent and beautiful and put together. And she's a dancer and she does yoga, and there's nothing she can't do like your son. And
Yeah.
I think that what we can say to ourselves is that this is our gift and our challenge, and the only expectation that we have of ourselves is to take one step today, to just choose one thing, one kindness, one bit of patience, one looking our child in the eye and saying, "What's going on? How was your day? What'd you do at recess today?" That was always my question, because kids are like, "How was your day?" "Fine." "What'd you do at recess today?" "Ah, now they're talking." So that's what I like to do. Or put my phone down and park it and just sit on the couch with my kid and just check in. That's what I have to do. That's all I have to do. And the child we have in front of us is a gift and is more challenging to raise. Although what I've discovered, by the way, in so many years of being honored to speak with so many parents as a teacher and as a practitioner working with ADHD families, is that every single child presents their challenges in different ways at different times. So you have the kid who's losing it in elementary school, and then you have the kids who later on in life are can't manage the stress of adulthood. So it's not our child is more challenging. It's raising children in this environment is challenging. I'm awesome because I get up in the morning, I have a smile on my face, I'm revved up to love my kids. And that's all that I have to do. That's it.
Nailed it. Nailed it. That's in this crazy, judgmental, cancel culture, Kardashian world. Our only job is to love those children that we've been gifted with unconditionally,
Yeah,
because life is not easy. It is not. It is a, you know, if it was easy, then would we actually be advancing the way we're advancing, creating the medical cures that we're creating the technology? No, because if it's easy, we wouldn't do anything.
right. And the truth is that our children give us our biggest challenge, and they also raise us to be our best selves. And
Yep.
I know that if I didn't have these amazing 6 challenges, then where would I be? Who would I be? I would not be the person I am today. We just married off this daughter. We just had and the joy of watching her marry the love of her life, it was such a gift. And every one of those days that I decided to love this child unconditionally, it all just came showering down on me at her wedding canopy, standing there, with my husband there, and the payback. It was so glorious that I still don't have words for it, and it was half a year ago.
Oh, this is such a good conversation. I do need, I want to move it forward because I want a story of resilience. I always ask, what is a story of resilience that without that moment of resiliency, we would not be having this discussion?
Okay. I would say it was my son, my oldest son. He was in ninth grade and he was not doing great. And and the principal, I made a meeting with the teacher, the principal, and guidance counselor and everything, all those people. And we're sitting and we're trying to figure out how to help him. And the principal looks at me and says, "If you don't think that we love your son, then this is not the right place for him." And I looked at him and all of a sudden I say, "Oh my God, he doesn't love my son. And I felt like this freedom moment where like Mama Bear became so awake. And I said, this is not the place. That's the goal. You need to surround your child with love and care. And I just said, I said to my son, we're out of here. This is not the place that's going to raise you and educate you. We have to find a place that's kind and loving and sees your light. And I felt, a moment of maturity that I'm the mom and the buck stops here and I'm my child's only advocate. And that's really the moment where I went into high gear and said, I've got to do all the research. I have to find out everything that's happening for my children and get the best treatment plans and the best interventions and meet the best people. And you're never going to find perfect, but you're going to, that was the moment where I just bounced back because I'd been told your child's going to land up in jail. Your child needs a pill. Your child is not making it. And you know what you do? You shrink and you shrink and you shrink until you have that moment and you say, none of that's true. Those are all curses. And I'm not willing to accept any of those curses anymore because my kids are amazing. And not only that, I'm amazing and I'm powerful and I'm going to take care of these kids as God intended me to take care of them. And it set me free. And I've never thanked that principal for it because he'd probably think it was super weird, but it really was a very, very powerful moment. And from then on in, I went into high gear research mode, which landed us with the 2 books and really being able to raise my children properly without the curses that were hanging over me of you can't, you won't, they can't. Those were gone at that moment.
It is interesting how those moments, and I do agree. If somebody has to say, "We love your kid," or that's like that when people always do that, "just kidding," all
Yeah,
that kind of passive aggressive language. If somebody has to say it, they actually didn't mean it.
exactly.
So yeah. So let's talk about your books. Walk us through your books and what can the reader expect from your books.
So this is my first book, Hyper Healing, and it's a full intervention program because I've been working with parents for over 15 years and consulting with parents and teaching in college a full program for ADHD in the classroom. And what I was noticing is that parents would reach out to me and I would tell them what I charge for my services, and they were like, "Oh, okay, never mind." So there was an entire part of the population that could not afford to get help for their child. And the only thing that was left for them was medicating. And like I said, I'm not against medicating. And I did medicate a few of my own children for a short period of time, but that's not going to solve the problem. So we have a large group of people that simply either can't access the information because they can't do the research themselves. They don't have the time, or they don't understand the research because it's not their field, or they can't afford it. So I landed up taking my entire program and putting it into book form. It's very easy to follow. And it's a full coaching program. So you open the book, you'll find your kid in there. I promise you, because I get that feedback all the time. How do you know what's going on in my house? I'm like, yeah, I know because it goes on in my house I know what's going on. So you're going to find your child in there. If you don't find your child in there, it's not the book for you, but I promise you, you will. And therefore, once you identify your child, you'll be able to walk through the entire program of all the causes of ADHD symptoms for your healthy child with hands-on, easy to follow solutions. And my dream and goal is that parents actually band together, that they use the book and they, as a support, as a textbook for their support group, where they each read a chapter at home. They get together on the weekends. They have a WhatsApp group because I have an action plan at the end of every chapter. So you know exactly what you're supposed to do at the end of the chapter. And I summarize the book in a cheat sheet at the end of every chapter. So even those ADHD moms and dads, because it is genetic, my husband's wildly ADHD. So he definitely passed on those genes to the guys. So you can even follow it if you're not great at focusing for a long time. And parents could really support each other following up with the goals that I set out at the end of each chapter. And full communities can really, for free, get a full intervention program. For the price of a book, could get a full intervention program. So I love that book. And so far, I'm getting wonderful feedback from it. And it's a high quality, and it's not all my ideas. It's a compilation of best practices. Like my kids say, "Oh, we were your guinea pigs." They totally were my guinea pigs, and because of them, I could present to all the parents out there the best practices, the stuff that really works. So that's book number one.
And book number two, which is it out or it's coming out?
No, it's out.
It's out.
It's called Hyper Healing, Show Me the Science. And that's the book it's my informed consent book. It's the deep dive into the science. What's going on with the diagnosis of ADHD? How did we get to it? So there's some history in there, which I love. And then we get into how did the diagnosis develop over the years, starting with the DSM-3, now we're at the DSM-5. How has it changed? Why has it changed? Are the changes scientific? Then going into all of the different types of medications and discussing all of them, because parents are given a prescription and there is a little paper inside the box that nobody reads. And so I'm reading it and I'm putting it together for you. So if you do decide to medicate your child, know the facts. Yeah. Because it's really powerful to be able to ask questions and have information. And for me, it's very, very important. And that's really, that research is what made me be able to make my best decisions for my kids.
And that's, and that you just said, it's best decisions for my kids. But the key thing is you are parenting. There are a lot of people who do not parent their children. They exist with their children. You see this. They have these like this whole, oh, I let them make all the decisions, or I may let them, and it's like, that's not parenting.
No, that's being fearful.
Yeah.
Let them do it so you don't have to take responsibility.
Exactly. And so, what we're talking about here, folks, is healthy parenting. Actually be involved, be engaged. We're not controlling them. We're not imprinting our personalities on them. We're not making mini clones, but we're also not allowing them at the age of 5, 6, or 7, make all the decisions on what time they go to bed, what they're watching on TV, what they're going to eat at the dinner table, because they don't have that ability.
Right.
They don't have that ability.
And we also won't hand them the car keys when they're 7. So why, if they get to make those decisions, why don't they get to try?
I know. People who don't parent their children might as well go ahead and just lock them up somewhere, because you're not giving them the tools to be really amazing human beings, in the sense of, being the ones that they could be the person that changes the entire world. You don't know. Right. We don't know what our children will do. So,
and they can be great, awesome, kind people. And,
So don't be afraid to parent. Give yourself grace, right? And do know that one size does not fit all, but you do have to look for the size that will fit your family. So that being said, walk us through your socials and then close us with a quote that inspires you.
All righty then. So my website, where you can interact directly with me, certainly you can set up a 15-minute call, is hyperhealing.org. I also have 2 quizzes on the website that really give you direction in terms of what's causing yours or your child's ADHD symptoms. So that gets you started on your journey. And I give a bunch of information once you get your answer. You can see me on YouTube. I have a YouTube channel, Hyper Healing Mom. I put up videos, instruction videos, a lot of free material there. I'm on Instagram at hyperhealing.adhd, as well as LinkedIn. That's just my name, Avigail Gimpel. But in all of those places, I'm very, very happy to interact with you, to hear your thoughts, to hear your questions. I love questions. I love curiosity. So That's those are things that I'm happy to hear from you.
And what's a quote that inspires you?
So a quote that I particularly love, and I used to have it on my website, but I couldn't translate it quite right. It's a quote that's originally in Hebrew, and I'm not going to say it in Hebrew because no one will understand. But it's from King Solomon, and the quote is, "Educate each child according to his path or her path." Um, and therefore, if you do that, your child will not stray from it. And the question is, what's it? Is it their path or is it us? And my take on it is that the child will not stray from their true selves. So King Solomon gives us some amazing wisdom that we have to see each child as a separate human being. No two are the same, and every single one of them has their own path.
I love that. I love that. Abigail, you are a rock star. Thank you for doing the work that you do because, like I said, folks, it's okay. You're not alone. It's kind of tough out there. The whole world's a little nutters these days. And the reality is we got to stick together so we can make amazing, amazing human beings. Because I promise the child you have, I promise you this, is an amazing human being just waiting to be discovered. So, Abigail.
Thanks so much, Kim.
Absolutely. All right, folks, until next time, you know what? I'm just asking, please be good to yourself.
Thank you for joining us here today at Kim Talks Resilience. I'm your host, Kim Hayden, and I'd love to invite you to our resilient community at resilientgift.com. That's resilientgift.com, and we'll send you our magazine and tickets for upcoming events and all sorts of cool things we do here. So be sure to keep watching. And you know what? Don't forget to like, subscribe, comment, and share, because we all know that